This is 15-Minute Fundamentals, where we interview core contributors within crypto and gain insights into their day-to-day operations. In this episode, I'm joined by Tyson from Zora, an NFT marketplace and universal media registry protocol. To cover the basics, NFT marketplaces are smart contract-based exchanges that allow for the permissionless trading of non-fungible assets globally. The problem that NFT marketplaces solve is allowing new kinds of value to be tokenized and brought on-chain. These marketplaces allow consumers to trade their items freely and creators to launch and monetize new digital works. NFT marketplaces, similarly to decentralized exchanges, bring down the cost of an art collection, or drop, and trading to one function call. Once an artwork is represented as a non-fungible token on-chain, it inherits the advantageous features of blockchains: global liquidity, predefined rules of operation, immutable audit trail, and open source transparency. The primary business model for NFT marketplaces is to generate revenue by charging marketplace fees. That is, NFT marketplaces typically take a portion of either creators' revenue or from the fee paid by a collector. Over the next 15 minutes, we cover the basics of Zora, its purpose, how the platform and protocol work, current state of the NFT market, Zora's current growth drivers, plans for the future, and more. Hello, Tyson. Welcome to 15-Minute Fundamentals. It's great to have you on.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Today we'll be diving into the details behind Zora, but before we get into those, it would be awesome if you could just give a quick introduction to the protocol for anyone not yet familiar.
Yeah, for sure. So Zora's been a few things in the past, but Zora today is a NFT minting platform and protocol for creators, brands, developers. Basically, we make it as easy as possible to create and collect NFTs.
Got it. Short and sweet. Now, to set the stage here, how would you describe the core problem that you've set out to solve with Zora? So in other words, like your company purpose.
For sure. Yeah, I guess there's two kind of core pain points that we've kind of been trying to deal with for the last little while now, which is firstly, just creating an NFT is fundamentally difficult. There's a whole bunch of process involved to reliably create NFTs. Things like uploading their metadata to IPFS so that it's accessible everywhere, deploying contracts that don't have vulnerabilities, adding in multiple different types of sales configurations so that they can actually be bought and sold easily, adding all sorts of like new functionality that's kind of been appearing now, which is, airdrop functionalities, the ability to have a custom website attached, all of that like nice to have moments that when it comes to creating a NFT for a creator is very difficult. So we've been trying to make that as easy as possible, both in the protocol and in the platform we have. And then secondly, just finding any NFTs to mint is also difficult. Right now, there's a very, very broad market for finding NFTs on a secondary marketplace. Obviously, there's OpenSea, there's Blur, there's even Coinbase NFT, all sorts of platforms that make it really easy to find NFTs once they have already been minted. But what's very difficult is finding NFTs that are available to be minted on a primary market. So being able to be bought and sold directly from a creator. NFTs right now are just kind of spread all across the internet. So most of them have their own websites. Most of them don't really offer an easy way to be discovered until they get available on a secondary marketplace. So what we do is we aggregate all of these primary markets by offering these factory contracts for people to use and basically provide a feed of mintable content for any collector to go find and discover through Zora.
Got it. Yeah, I do agree with you. There's a lot of complexity in the NFT space to navigate for users at times. But in a bit more detail, how do you abstract that complexity from users? So can you describe your core product and its features?
Yeah, so I guess there's two sides. There's the protocol side and there's the platform side. On the protocol side to start, we offer basically a very well-scoped and easy-to-use factory contract that allows anyone to basically just print NFTs. So you bring your artwork, you bring your creation, and we make it easy for that to be turned into a smart contract that the creator completely owns and is able to allow these like NFTs to be collected from. On the platform side, what we offer is basically a very, very tightly scoped UI that allows them to have a customized website that lets them personalize what it looks like when you actually buy and sell these NFTs. And we also just have a feed of running content on the main Zora.co website as well for collectors to discover these mints as they pop up, rather than having to kind of scope across all of the internet.
Got it. And at the moment, what's the most common use case from a user's perspective?
The big one today is just collecting open editions. Obviously, we're seeing this like foundational shift in the meta of NFTs, moving away from these, hyper expensive one-of-one collections, these like 10K profile picture collections, into much more of a content-based market, which is to say that it's really about collecting the content and propagating that content as far as wide as possible as you can across the internet. And open editions really provide the perfect medium for that, because you can set a relatively low price, which allows anyone across the internet to be able to collect and run these sales for as long as you want. So instead of having to collect the single thing, you're actually building a small community of collectors that are all able to collect at once, rather than have to fight over the one canonical piece.
I'm going to tag on to that when you said that the market kind of preferences have changed from the single expensive pieces to more open editions, smaller ones. I'd love to hear how you would currently describe the state of the NFT market in general, and then how you as Zora are positioned within it. So maybe what are are like the biggest opportunities, biggest challenges, and like, yeah.
The hypothesis that we've kind of formed over the last year or so, having been in the NFT space for now 3 years, is we're seeing this shift away from like very, very expensive, hard to get NFTs, which are these one-of-ones or these very limited set of NFTs in these 10K profile picture collections. And we're seeing much more of a shift of like expanding the collector base as far and wide as possible. There's one thing to be said about like having one very powerful collector that's able to collect that one-of-one NFT, or the 100 or 10,000 people that are able to collect those profile pictures. It's another thing entirely to be able to say that you have 100,000 collectors across Ethereum versus one. And this open edition transition that we're starting to see is really enabling anyone to be able to be a collector for an artist. So similar to how it's effectively free to like a post on Instagram or on Twitter, it's very, very cheap to collect an open edition from a creator on Ethereum and on Zora. What that basically means is the collector base for a creator has changed. It's no longer the one sponsor that they have to go after and find the one person willing to collect their artwork. They actually get to see the entire breadth of the audience that they're actually able to capture. And that's a very important shift, because it's, instead of targeting one person, you actually get to see who's been paying attention to you, who may have previously not been able to actually participate in the markets you're creating. It's a really interesting shift, and I think Zora is very well positioned for it, just because of the simplicity we've kind of put into our product to make sure that it's as easy as possible to create these NFTs and sell these open editions without having to know how to code, without having to know how to propagate it across the internet. We basically wrap that all up into a single product.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Now, as you've been building in this space for quite some time, are you able to shed any light on how you view the market size or potential for Zora itself?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I think it's, if the hypothesis that we stated is to be true, and that is that like the price of the NFT kind of comes down, and the breadth of the collector base kind of continues to expand as that price comes down. Effectively, it's anyone on the internet who wants to collect content from their favorite artists or their favorite creators. Right now, there's really only like 4 million active addresses on Ethereum. But really, if you remove the Ethereum piece out of this and just look at the total sum of the internet of who's actually able to collect or who would want to collect from creators, it's a very, very wide market. Really, for us, it's about getting the breadth of collectors for these creators, which is much bigger than the active addresses on Ethereum today.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like a big thing that's going to play quite an important role in bringing that breadth of collectors to the space is like partnerships. I'd be keen on hearing what kind of role partnerships play within the Zora ecosystem. And also, as a timely topic, you could use the base introduced NFT drop in collaboration with Coinbase as an example here.
Yeah, for sure. So all of these partnerships are really, really important to us, not just for us, but also for the partners that we get to work with. So Coinbase, in the particular instance of base introduced, they were looking basically for a way to celebrate their launch on Ethereum and really show the community on Ethereum that they are moving towards an ETH native world. No longer this centralized entity that they've been known as for so long, moving into this very decentralized, very ETH friendly world. And Zora was the best place for them to be able to do that, because like I said, we were able to create these open editions with them that showed just how far and wide the supporters of Base Chain were. They ended up with, I think, about 400,000 NFTs collected among 120,000 unique collectors, which is just to show like how many people were supportive of Coinbase doing this, and how far and wide their community stretches on Ethereum itself. And in general, that's like something that I don't think you'd be able to do with a one-of-one in particular. You wouldn't be able to find how far and wide that audience is. And this open edition world really makes that possible.
Definitely. And the base introduced mint caused a pretty massive spike on your data if we look at any of the dashboards on Token Terminal as well. But even if we kind of exclude that single spike, all of your key metrics have been trending up very nicely. So you've had solid momentum for quite some time now, which is probably aligned with the increase in interest towards open editions as well. But what would you describe as the main drivers behind that traction? Anything else that you haven't already spoke about?
The main pieces here that have really stuck out to us is just how important it is to be able to offer a aggregated list of all of the possible content that's available to be minted on Ethereum. We've kind of realized that we're actually quite good at helping propagate these works far and wide across the internet, whether that's through our Twitter, through our website itself. All of these channels are really, really powerful and able to really attract a lot of attention across the market that we have. So whether it's Coinbase launching, bringing a lot of their own audience, whether it's Utopia Labs, Gnosis Safe, creators that we work with. If we look at the cross-pollination of the Zora audience with the audience of a lot of these creators and collectors that we have, we're able to really form a really nice constructive wave of new people that are seeing the power of these collections and what happens when you get to join in these open editions.
Got it. And are there any specific challenges that you're facing right now, like clear bottlenecks to growth that need to be tackled?
There's always a few. The fact that Ethereum is inherently an expensive chain always stands out. In theory, if we look at Web 2 platforms for content creation like TikTok or YouTube or even Twitter, all of these platforms are effectively free to use to post. And that stands out a lot as a difference maker between Ethereum and Web 2 platforms. Obviously, the strategy on Web 2 platforms is often to post far, wide, and often. Make sure that you get your content everywhere you possibly can as often as you can. On Ethereum, it's a little bit harder to do that because it costs between $10 and $30 to actually create an NFT on Ethereum, which means that you have to be a little bit more certain about what you're posting. And that friction or that mental shift is a little bit difficult and one that we're working around today. But I think that's one of the big friction points we have right now with onboarding new people into Ethereum.
And I'm going to pivot back to your product here a bit because I want to hear a bit of more of a technical overview of how it works. I know we have a lot of listeners who are very keen on hearing the technicalities and understanding like the core differences of different platforms. So are you able to open up the hood a little bit into how Zora works and maybe describe it from the lens of your most relevant and important smart contracts?
For sure, yeah. So starting at the contract level, we have two separate contract factories. We have one for ERC 721 contracts, which are single NFTs or single edition contracts. And then we have another factory for ERC 1155 contracts, which are multiple editions. You can put a whole bunch of different works into one contract. Both of them use a really similar pattern. So what happens is we have a factory contract for each 721 and 1155. A creator then gets to go to that contract, say, hey, I want to create an NFT. Here are the sales details I want. Here's the media I want to upload. Here's the title. Here's the description, the price, the time I want it to be available for, etc. And that creates a new NFT contract for them. Basically, we have this factory to create these new NFT contracts for them because it provides a much cheaper option than deploying these contracts yourself, because we just got to copy a lot of code on Ethereum into these proxy contracts for creators. What's really nice is once they have those contracts, it's completely creator owned. So all of the ability to change the sales data, change the artwork, change anything you want is all role based, and these creators get full control over who is allowed to change what on their contracts. So Zora itself owns these factory contracts, but as soon as they're created into these contracts for creators, it's entirely self-owned by them, and they get full control over what happens to them after that point. But the pattern is, like I said, very simple. It's a factory contract that creators get to bring their specifications to, and we give them the contract back for their NFT. On top of those contracts, we have obviously our backend and our indexer, which is a very, very powerful backend system that helps us aggregate all of the content across Zora and just across Ethereum. So now we're able to index all of the NFTs that are made for sale on Zora, all of the NFTs that are made for sale by other marketplaces, and really offer that in this very nice aggregated feed across Zora. And then on top of the backend, obviously we have our website where we wrap everything up and try to obfuscate all of the complex contract interactions that we do under the hood and just make it as easy as possible for people to start to deploy their own NFTs.
Exactly. And thank you. So people who deploy their own NFTs at the moment, do they need any level of technical expertise, or have you been able to abstract that completely from the UX?
The most technical that the user needs to get is knowing how to have crypto in a wallet that they own. And that is about all. After that, it is very similar to just posting a new post on Instagram or uploading a new video to YouTube. It's all of the same form fields, and it feels very, very similar.
That's great. Removing friction is something that needs to be done a bit more in this space. So I love it. I want to move on to speak a bit about your financials. So now that we understand how the product works, can you break down your economic models? So who pays fees for what, and how are they paid to different participants within your ecosystem? And then also how Zora captures value.
So I guess the core primitive of Zora is it is free for creators. Anything a creator does on Zora is not charged by Zora at all. The only cost that they're paying is the gas cost to use Ethereum itself. And then the collector side, we charge $1 per mint at the protocol level. So anytime a collector collects something, we charge $1 for that service. The creators actually get to set all of their own pricing strategies. So they can choose whatever pricing they want for their work. And then basically we just offer a service that helps match a collector to that artwork and help them facilitate that payment. The pricing is very, very much in the hands of the creators as far as what prices show up on Zora and what prices we help facilitate. But as far as Zora's financials itself go, it's a simple approximately $1 payment per mint.
Got it. Now, I'd also be keen on hearing what the team building Zora looks like, the broader team. So to the extent that you are able to share, what's your team composition like at the moment, size, etc.?
Yeah, I think we're about 50 people in total now, maybe a little bit more than that. I'd say about half of that is our engineering team, and the other half of that makes up marketing, partnerships, operations, everything like that. Everyone at Zora comes from very, very unique backgrounds, and most of our engineering team, most of our operations team don't actually come from traditional operations or engineering backgrounds. We have people that have been photographers in the past, history majors, geologists, all sorts of backgrounds kind of coming together to form what is Zora today. And it makes for a really, really powerful group, because what happens is when it comes to brainstorming what the best solutions are for these creators, everyone has like an extremely diverse background to draw from. And we end up with all sorts of opinions to get to form what Zora is today. And it leads to a much more broad set of what we can do with Zora. We don't have these very opinionated one-track mindsets anymore. We kind of start to see what it looks like when we open up Zora to all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds.
That's super important. And just final question to wrap up this interview. It's been super insightful context to what's going on at Zora at the moment. I'd be keen on hearing what's next. So is there anything you can share about your mid to long-term roadmap? What are you most excited about right now?
I personally am most excited about how we get to bring everyone's imagination on chain. So we say this a lot, and we say it half-heartedly, but also very seriously, which is Zora's goal is to bring imagination on chain. What I mean by that is we really want it to be possible for anyone's creation anywhere on the internet to be brought into an ecosystem that allows it to be valued, allows it to be known by the collectors, allows creators to connect with those collectors, and really tighten that connection between an audience member and a creator, and really make sure that those two groups are brought together a little bit more directly. The things I'm most excited through the summer are obviously just removing the friction points to make that happen. Obviously, Ethereum is by its nature a very powerful but very expensive machine, and we want to make sure that the friction points for creators is as low as possible, and for collectors as well.
I love that, bringing imagination on chain. Thank you so much, Tyson, for this session. It was a great overview of Zora, and I hope that we can do this again at some point in the future to dive deeper into some of the topics we touched on here. So appreciate it.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you for having me.